we've got an extraterrestrial. Heart-stopping action. The best vacuum cleaner ever.
Don't hurt him!
80s dance numbers. And lots of Coca-Cola. It's Mac and me, but is it watchable? Thank you, spurious applause, and welcome everybody to Is It Watchable? I'm your host, Paul. Life is filled with cheap knockoffs. The Transformers have the GoBots, the Blizzard has the McFlurry, a Wizard of Earthsea has Harry Potter, yeah, I said it, and of course, E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial has Mac and me. According to movies, kids will make friends with anything. Animals, robots, ghosts, monsters. It's a whole thing. And of course, the undisputed champ of all kid and weird friend movies is 1982's E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial. Even if Steven Spielberg's classic didn't make you cry, there's a good chance it made your parents or grandparents cry. It was kind of sad. But more importantly, it made a buttload of money at the box office and was a commercial phenomenon. There were toys, clothing, dishes, storybooks narrated by Michael Jackson, and finger lights. Finger lights. About the only thing there wasn't was a sequel. And when you're talking about one of the biggest blockbusters of all time, that's a lot of sweet, sweet cash left on the table. But not to worry, because McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and the producers of Mac and Me teamed up to help alleviate some of our ET withdrawal, lighten our wallets, and help us appreciate Steven Spielberg just a little more. On an alien planet somewhere, a family of surprised-looking creatures hangs out in the desert, treating the planet like a giant coconut. When a NASA spacecraft lands nearby, the creatures walk over to check it out only to get sucked up by its vacuum thingy because the movie has to get them to Earth somehow. Back on Earth, NASA scientists examine the spacecraft when suddenly the aliens escape. In all the commotion, the youngest alien is separated from his family and is surrounded by the military. He decides to make a break for it and gets shocked by an electric fence, then stretches out all weird, then gets blown away by a helicopter's downwash, and then rolls into the street, and then gets splattered on somebody's windshield, causing them to lose control, resulting in a horrible car accident. It's action-packed. Because of the accident, traffic is all backed up, so the alien takes the opportunity to secretly jump into a minivan. The minivan is owned by the Cruz family, Mother Janet, Big Brother Michael, and our hero, Little Brother Eric. At a checkpoint, the feds thoroughly search their van for the alien by lazily shining a flashlight through the window. Once the coast is clear, the alien swipes Eric's cool, refreshing Coca-Cola and settles down for some shut-eye. Meanwhile, the rest of his family is wandering in the desert looking for him. That NASA facility was teeming with scientists and military personnel, both on the ground and in the air, all of which had eyes on the aliens. Now, they explained how Mac got away. I'm just gonna start calling him Mac. We all know that's his name, it's in the title. They explained how he got away, even if it was stupid. But all three somehow slipped away undetected and are now just roaming around out in the open. What? The Cruz family is relocating to California from Illinois, and Eric, for one, likes what he sees.
Hey, look at all the cars. This looks pretty nice.
The family pulls up to their new digs, and when they're all out of the van, Mac hops out and is spotted by the neighbor girl. Then he just sort of haunts the family for a while. They think they see something, but they're not sure. He makes strange things happen, like making a remote control car go crazy and a television work without electricity. Next, after eating some Skittles, Eric's mom brings him a sandwich and another Coke because, you know, he's a growing boy after all. Then, after the shower mysteriously turns on, Eric follows the wet footprints to the kitchen where Mac jumps from the top of the refrigerator and runs out the door, breaking a lamp on his way out. Outside, the neighbor girl, Debbie, tells him that Mac went down the hill behind the house. And when his mom wants to know who broke the lamp, Eric has a hard time convincing her.
I'm not lying, Mom. I swear it.
That night, Mac calls to his family from the backyard and they call back to him from the desert where they're still wandering aimlessly. Really? Are we to believe that nobody's looking for these aliens? Because they're not even trying to hide. The next morning, Mac does some more haunting. He plays with the RC car some more, he drills a hole in the wall, he redecorates the living room, and he uses a circular saw to cut through the front door because he just knows how to use tools now. When the mom wakes up and sees all the damage, she's horrified and immediately blames the boys and then goes back to bed. Now Eric is determined to find Mac, so he goes out back to explore the hill behind the house. But it's really steep and he loses control of his wheelchair, speeding down the hill until flying off a cliff and landing into a pond. Of course, without the use of his legs, he starts to drown, but luckily Mac is there to save him. Later, the doctor gives Eric a mild sedative because, who knows why, and Debbie and her sister, who works at McDonald's, invite Eric to somebody else's birthday party at McDonald's. That night, Eric and Debbie hatch a plan to catch Mac, much like Elliot did in E.T., but instead of baiting with Reese's Pieces, they use Coca-Cola because they're the ones that paid. Mac takes the bait and ends up in the bedroom where Eric and Debbie burst out of the closet and suck him up into a vacuum. Wait, what? Why would they think that would work? Sure, we saw it happen earlier, but They didn't see that. I mean, these kids should be old enough to know the capabilities of a vacuum cleaner. Anyway, with Mac trapped inside, the vacuum cleaner goes crazy and takes Debbie for a ride. Finally, they switch it into reverse and Mac gets out somehow. But now he's not feeling too well, so they give him something to drink. But none of that flavorless water crap, they give him a hit of the good stuff, Coca-Cola. And stupidly, it works. The mom comes home and Mac disappears again. Of course. They tell her what happened and she doesn't believe them. Of course. The next day, to show his gratitude for all the Coke, Mac repairs all the damage he did to the house. Then Mac communicates with his family again, who are still just hanging out in plain sight in broad daylight. Next, for reasons that aren't clear, Mac commandeers a kid's Jeep and is chased by a pack of dogs and winds up in a tree. Then, for reasons that aren't clear, we get a jogging montage with Eric and his mom set to a crummy pop song. Here's a taste. Later, the feds question the family because the vacuum cleaner incident caused a suspicious power outage. Now Mac is sick, probably from diabetes, and shows Eric how to communicate Mac style. Now it's time for the McDonald's birthday party, but they can't just leave Mac all alone sick, so Eric quickly makes a costume for him out of a giant teddy bear. Aw man, remember McDonald's back in the 80s? People dancing in the parking lots, people dancing in the dining room, how they used to let people dance on the counters? Luckily, all that dancing provides enough cover for Mac and Eric to sneak out as the feds are hot on their trail. So now we get the big E.T.-like chase sequence complete with a Back to the Future ripoff for good measure. And a trip to Sears to squeeze in even more brand placement. Unlike the feds, the kids are smart enough to bring their car with them, scoop up Mac and Eric, and make their getaway. Using the clues that Mac has been leaving throughout the movie, he's been leaving clues by the way, they drive out to the desert in search of his family. On the way, they give Mac Skittles and Coke while the kids in the front seat eat ice cream because they're trying to give our eyeballs a stomachache. Finally, they come to an old mine where they find Mac's family. They're close to death until they're given that magical elixir of life, Coca-Cola Classic. If you think the whole Coke is medicine thing is kind of ridiculous, consider a couple of Coca-Cola's past taglines. So I guess it tracks. On their way to wherever it is they're going, they probably should have just camped out at the mine. They stop for gas and the aliens get out and go into a grocery store. Everyone is freaked out, especially after the father alien grabs a security guard's gun. That doesn't go over well when the police show up.
They're not gonna hurt you!
Outside, the cops have the place surrounded, and when the aliens start walking back to the gas station, Eric starts to follow. Attempting to stop Eric, a cop trips over the hood of a car, causing his gun to go off. The police think the alien is shooting, so they open fire, hitting the gas pumps and making the whole place explode. Sadly, Eric is now dead, and after his mom shows up, we're all meant to cry along with the sad music. But again, since we've all seen E.T., we know that aliens are magical and that Eric isn't going to stay dead for long.
He's okay.
Now the movie has to figure out how to tie up this mess. So they have the aliens sworn in as citizens of the United States, give them a nice wardrobe, a classic car to drive, and the promise to bring them back in a sequel. It's funny because they actually thought they'd be back. Now, I'm about the 3 millionth person to review Mac and Me, and far from the first to point out its similarities to E.T. But oh my god, while the film of course isn't exactly the same, it seems only different enough to avoid a lawsuit. Both feature adolescent boys who make friends with big-eyed, leathery-looking aliens who they bond with using blatant product placement, all while trying to avoid experiment-happy G-men. The list goes on, and of course the other thing that this movie's known for is all the in-your-face products and brands that make it feel more like a commercial than a movie. Now I didn't actually do the math, but it seems like Coca-Cola had more screen time in the movie than the mother. And not only is McDonald's talked about, Courtney, Debbie's big sister, wears a Mickey D's uniform for like half the movie. One of the film's big set pieces is a huge dance sequence at a McDonald's, and the main character in the movie is named Mac. Want some quick facts? Of course you do. Jade Calgary, who played Eric, wasn't just acting like a kid confined to a wheelchair, he had spina bifida and really didn't have the use of his legs. His condition, combined with this being his first film, makes his performance the coolest thing about this movie. Not only was McDonald's prominently featured in the film, the producers had a profit-sharing deal with Ronald McDonald House Charities, which probably didn't work out so well since the movie only made like $6.5 million in the US against a $13 million budget. And as of this filming, the movie is a member of a fairly exclusive club sporting a dismal 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. So Mac and Me, is it watchable? Man, I really want to say it's so bad it's good, and it's close. I probably wouldn't argue too much if someone said it was, but for me, it just misses the mark. It's got some good stuff. You can play a drinking game every time you spot a can of Coke, and providing your own dialogue for those stone-looking aliens is a blast. But the movie as a whole can be kind of painful to watch. Between all the E.T. moments, there's not a lot of movie in there, and you can tell the filmmakers knew it. They stretch it out as much as they can with lots of plot padding, and it can put you to sleep real quick. Probably the number one thing that saves this movie from being completely unwatchable is its infamous reputation as one of the most blatant cash grabs in cinematic history. So I recommend at least checking it out because it's so bad, it's really not that bad. Well, that's another episode in the books. Join me next time when I check out the underwater horror that is Jaws the Revenge. And don't forget to subscribe.